Oh yeah, it's only a few questions. Well, they usually are.
Right. Well, maybe I won't talk as much so we can keep it to the minimum. So, all right. All right. Are we ready? I think I've started recording. I have. Okay. Okay. Oh, it says your network bandwidth is low, Ashley. So if we lose you, dial back
Mine?
in. Yeah.
Uh,
So if we lose you, dial back in.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry if you do.
No, that's okay. We'll just, but it just is. I have a notice on my end. I don't know if you can see it on your end. Mark, can you
No,
see
but
it?
No, it didn't show up on mine.
Okay. It on my end. It says that her bandwidth is really low. So, all right.
okay.
So let's go ahead and we can share. I like that they did not, apparently they don't know that we're using Zoom. This must be from an old lesson when they were, because I mean, I've had classes where we use Google Hangout.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I noticed that it was a Google Hangout or a Adobe Connect, which I don't think they've used for a while.
I've never even heard of that.
So, all right. So let's start with number 1. In May 2015, a group of more than 60 Asian organizations filed a complaint that Harvard holds higher expectations for Asian applicants than other minorities. They argued that if applicants were based on merit alone, then Asian students would make up a higher percentage of the Harvard student body. Asian students need higher test scores for admittance than whites, African Americans, and Latinos. Using the information from your textbook, do you think that this is an accurate representation of the diversity of the Asian population? Why or why not? Anybody, any thoughts? I'll go ahead and start. So if in the reading it said that, so they kind of block all the Asians together. So you have like Filipinos and Koreans and Japanese and Chinese and people from Laos and India. Those are all bunched together as Asians. They're not necessarily differentiated by like, their specific race. They're all just kind of bunched together. And I think that I don't think that the using higher test scores or requiring higher test scores for Asian students is fair because that it's not doesn't correlate necessarily because not everybody had the same advantage. Although I know as far as like Asian people that we know, they really do hold their children to higher standards and really expect them to excel at school. But that's not always the case, and not everybody has the same opportunities. So like if you were Asian and you went to school in Burley, Idaho, or Rexburg, Idaho, and you had a 4.0 GPA, but you went to a 6 or 7A school in Texas and you had a 4.2 GPA, because apparently you can have that. So the person, the Asians in, in Idaho wouldn't get the same thought as the ones that came from a bigger school. Does that make sense? So I think that, so and I would liken that to Texas schools, and I will type this up in a minute, but I would liken that to Texas schools where only they hold white students to a higher accountability because like at UT in Austin, so both my son and my daughter were in the top 10% of their graduating class. They had a small graduating class. I mean, they graduated in a class of 200. So, 20 students, but they both made that top 10%. And so they were supposed to be automatically accepted to any state school, but UT Austin changed their policies because they were trying to get more minorities. So they only the top 5% could go to UT Austin, even though the state said that, the top 10%. So.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because it says that Harvard holds, or like the Asian organizations filed that complaint that Harvard holds that higher expectation for Asians. I kind of understand what they're doing when it comes to diversity, because you don't want like the whole entire school to just be like one race, they want they want it to be diverse. They want to have all these different races, so that way they have representations of all these different cultures. And if they were to only have, or not only, but like the majority be Asians, then they wouldn't have that diversity like they would have. And because Asians, stereotypically achieve higher grades and stuff like that, they need to, I don't want to say they needed to be held at a higher standard, but they kind of need to like get the best ones. I mean, that's what Harvard's known for, is being this incredible like research university and everything, that they need the best of the best, but they also need to have that diversity. I don't know. It's kind of like, it makes sense, but it also isn't fair, because these races qualified, but they also need that diversity.
Right. But life isn't always fair. And I wish I would have looked up the article, because there was a student here, and maybe he was Asian, and he had like a 4.0 grade point average, or even above 4.0, and he did every a lot of extracurricular activities, did service. I mean, his dad quit his job so he could take him to all these places after school, so he could, spend all his time getting all this stuff, so he would be accepted to, he would have a full ride scholarship to, all the Ivy League schools, and he didn't get accepted to all of them. And he didn't get the scholarship he was expecting. And I can't remember exactly what happened. I wish I would have looked that up. But I think that, the expectation is, if I do all of this, but you're right, there's more to it than just, you're right, there needs to be, schools need to be diverse, but do they really need to be diverse? Maybe that's the real question. Does there really need to be a diversity in the school? I mean, and I think that's the next question. So. Hang on just a sec. Hey, I'm in my class. Bye. Sorry. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, Mark.
So I'm always I always subscribe to the philosophy that things should be given out based on merit, and regardless of what the ethnicity is, if, the majority of the kids who met the criteria are Asian, then that's what it is. If the majority of the kids that met it are African American, then that's what it is. It's just, I don't think you should punish one group of students for something that they're trying to achieve in their life, based on trying to, dumb it down for everyone else, I guess.
Yeah, dumbing
don't-
it down. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That's. I mean, life isn't fair, but at the same time, like there needs to be a baseline standard when it comes to getting into, like a job or school or whatnot. And if it's here for one group and here for another group, and they can raise it and lower it whenever they want. It seems like, it's like, well, what's the point then?
Right. Well, so Southwestern University, where I work, has a really high standard of acceptance, but they lowered their standard so they could get football players. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times, because the football players could not get, would not qualify just by grades alone. I mean, so instead of being like a 4.0 and having a 32 or whatever on the ACT, so now you could have a 25 on the ACT and you could be like a 3.5 or they would work with you because they don't offer scholarships for football because it's a D3 school. So, they had to be able to offer them tuition assistance to be able to get it. So then, they dropped the standard a little bit to allow those other people in. So anyway, but
that happens more often than it should.
Yeah. So, all right. So many universities are trying to achieve a diverse student body. They want not only racial diversity, but an overall diversity of student experience. What are some benefits of student diversity? And let's go ahead and just answer it all at once as to, do you think diversity is a worthwhile goal? So, well, I mean, let's go ahead and put why diversity would be good. We can all answer this and then maybe we can each answer this. So let's come up with a brainstorm for this part for benefits of diversity.
One thing that I was thinking is that it would appeal to the minority races, because I honestly would be, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but like I'd feel a little out of place if I went to a university where I was the minority. But if they have a sense of diversity and have people of all different races and have all these different cultural aspects,
right,
then I think it would appeal to the minorities. Like, oh, like they have a great, this, and this, like I want to go there kind of thing.
Okay.
I think there's difference of life experience depending upon how you were raised, and I think that's beneficial in an overall group setting rather than just have one idea. You have multiple ideas.
Right. So to go back to the other question about the Asians, so do you think that Harvard is trying to be diversified and not accept all these Asians, but is that really being diversified because there's so many different types of Asians? It's not like they're all Japanese or they're not all Korean, but they could be like, you would still be accepting a whole bunch of different cultures, even though they've been labeled, Asian, but they're not necessarily that. You would still have, it would be a minority. I mean, they would be, different people, different cultures. It'd be a different life experience because they would be, still meeting people from different areas.
There are different types of Asians, but there are also different types of, I don't want to say types, but like Black people, they come from different countries.
Right.
Everyone just says that they're African American, but they come from so many different
right.
countries and cultures but people don't really take that into consideration. They're Black. And I think that's like one thing I don't want to say Harvard is doing this because I'm obviously not a part of that. I don't really know too much, but just generalizing it, people view people based on their color, not necessarily, or like their race, you know? I don't see people as like, oh, you're Japanese. I'm like, but when I first see someone, I'm like, oh, you're Asian, or oh, you're Black, but I don't know necessarily where they're from. Does that make? I'm not trying to be like racist or anything. I
No,
promise.
but so when I see somebody from the Philippines or from Samoa, I don't think that they are Asian. I wouldn't have classified them as Asian. I would have
Yeah.
classified, and I don't really say Asian, I say Oriental. And I know that that's probably not a probably socially acceptable word, but I always think of them from like Oriental countries, and I think of like the Philippines is more as a Pacific place.
Yeah.
I mean, not, but what I'm saying is, even though they're all right there, I mean, I just, I work with somebody from the Philippines, and so I really don't think of him as being Oriental, or Asian.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, there's like Polynesians, there's like Samoans and Tongans, but a lot of people generalize them as Polynesians instead of knowing exactly what their heritage is.
Right, and so that even comes down to Hawaiians, true Hawaiians, right?
Exactly.
Because they would all be labeled into that one group.
And I think that's what's happening here. They're just being labeled into that one group instead of necessarily going into, oh, this person's from Japan, this person's from China, and diversifying it that way. I think they're just kind of classifying them as an Asian. I mean, that's how I kind of see it.
Okay, so I'm going to say that some benefits of diversity is assimilation. I don't think I spelled that right. Of ethnic groups. So they could come together and maybe even kind of combine, how we have like the reverse. So it's not like, although the Asians really want, to me from my reading, it sounded like the Asians really are trying hard to be more American. I mean, did you feel like that was what it was? Even though they weren't really accepted, they were easier to assimilate into the American way of life?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other benefits of student diversity? I guess you maybe get to know about other ethnic groups. I mean, I came from a pretty homogenistic white culture growing up, and so when I went to college, it was a whole new experience for me, meeting people of different colors, So, all right. So, do you think diversity is a worthwhile goal? Why or why not?
I think so. I think it's important for everyone to understand and learn about different cultures and where people come from. Everyone has different backgrounds of growing up and where they grew up. But I think that diversity really educates us.
Okay, Mark?
Yes, it is. It helps to make us more accepting of each other, and to help, just understand the differences of the cultures, and that you might not understand, how somebody in one culture does one thing, but if you're around them a lot and you just, you can relate to them as somebody who they are, the person rather than the ethnicity. I think that really helps build build those relationships with others.
Okay, I'm going to go along with that. And I am going to put yes. I lost my train of thought. I think yes, because it helps us break free from the stereotype. From stereotyping certain people. If you think about it, if you don't know somebody, you're going to assume that they're like everybody else that you know. Like, so if you have the book always talks about stereotypes, how, okay, so the stereotype for Asians is super smart, hardworking, and very motivated, and, clean and neat. And so, but you're going to think that, so anytime you meet an Asian, they're going to fall into that category. And unless you get to know somebody, you're going to always assume that stereotype for everybody you meet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also on top of all this, we learn about like current events. I mean, we can definitely learn about that on the news and everything. But like me, I love Peru. I mean, that's where I serve my mission and I love it. But knowing more about Peru and knowing more about knowing many people from there, I'm also more interested in other Latin American countries and what's going on and how they're impacted and things like that, which I'm also like, so I'm definitely interested in like the current events of Central and South America, but I'm starting to branch out in like the other current events of the world. And so I think when we when we start to know people, we become more interested in their culture and what is currently happening. I mean, that's how it is for me, at least.
Okay. Anything else, Mark?
No, that's it.
Okay. So, what characteristics do you think college students need to be successful? Do you think that these characteristics are correlated with race and ethnicity?
I think they need to have drive. They have to be driven to succeed, and have a goal in mind, and maybe somebody cheering them on along the way.
Yeah, college is rough.
Hang on, let
I
me,
agree with
okay.
that.
Okay. So, okay. So, Mark, really quick, do you think that these characteristics, what you've talked about, drive and want to succeed and a goal, are they correlated with race and ethnicity, or can anybody have that?
I believe that they are correlated with race and ethnicity, but only on a stereotypical level. like, perfect example is what we're talking about right now. Asians, they have more of a drive and a want to succeed, but again, that's more of a stereotype rather than a deep rooted characteristic.
Right. So when did you guys watch the videos?
I haven't yet.
No, I haven't yet.
Okay. So so one of them is well, there are a couple of interviews, but the second one is about college students who, one of them is going to be a dentist because his dad was a dentist, and the girl is going to be a doctor because that's what her parents told her she was going to be. But that's not where their passion or their love is. I mean, they excel and they're going to, they'll do it, but they wish that they could break free from what the expectation is and be an artist, or
Mhm.
the one girl looks like she's designing clothing, but she wants, so it looks like to me that they want to break, sometimes the Asians are held, I think people expect of them to be, doctors and dentists and, engineers, and where, when maybe that's not where the true passion or desire lies, but because that's what the expectant is.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So anyway, okay. Ashley.
So I was thinking of a lot of different attributes and characteristics, and I mean, you don't have to like type all these down, but just a couple were like determination, a positive mindset. They need to be proactive, practical, and like what Mark said, they need to be driven. And another one was like they need to strive to be innovative and inventive and think of different things. And I think that it can come from different racial and ethnic correlations because different cultures and different people raise their children different ways, just like you were explaining, Lisa. And but it also kind of dumps down to it that we're all human beings and we can all decide what and who we want to be. And I think that the stereotypes definitely do have an impact, but I think it really depends on each individual rather than the race or ethnicity. I mean, I know so many white people, like a lot. I mean, I'm from Idaho. There's a lot of us here. And I mean, I know so many that are so driven and so determined, but I also know so many that are so lazy and just are just such procrastinators. And so they're all over the scale. And I know people of other races. I know Asians that are super lazy. I know some Black people that are lazy and super proactive. So I think I think it's more of the way that they grew up rather than their race or ethnicity,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So I have to agree with you guys. I think that, drive and the want to succeed are really important. I think so. I think but the main characteristic Sorry. I think the biggest one is the desire to go to school, right?
Mhm.
Because you can be super smart and, you can be driven. And I know somebody who is super smart and went to school on a scholarship and, really driven, but uh, just college wasn't for him. I mean, he went for like a year or two, and then he was like, "This isn't for me. I don't like it. I'm not gonna be happy. I don't know what I really want to do with my life." I mean, just kind of floundered in college, and so he quit. So I think that you just really have to have that desire to go to school. Now, for me, I mean, I always wanted to graduate from college, but I never finished. I didn't have the drive or actually, I just didn't have couldn't pick a major. So I had 96 credit hours and no major. So I tried a whole bunch, but none of them were what I wanted to do. So now here I am, just going back to school just to get a degree. So, but I think the main characteristic, and I think that this characteristic actually breaks free from race and ethnicity. If you have that desire and, you can go to school, you'll find a way if that's your true desire. So, okay. All right. So Jim Jump, the college admission expert, responded thusly to a question of whether or not college admissions can really be fair to everyone. I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge because when it comes to the admissions process, you are trying to weigh a number of factors, some of which are, for a lot of applicants, is that the college admission process tends to reward privilege. If you look at things like SAT scores, they correlate very highly with socioeconomic advantage. So you deal with trying to equate people who've grown up in different backgrounds, who bring different strengths to the table. I'm not sure we'll ever get it right perfectly. It's more an art than a science. Not only do test scores reflect socioeconomic advantage, but income level often correlates with the quality of neighborhood schools. Students also face challenges if they are first students in their family to attend college, or if generations of their family were unable to receive education. So, what do you think would be fair indicators for colleges to consider for admissions?
They have the ACT and the SAT for a reason.
Yep.
And I think that those are fair indicators of where students are at academically, Okay. And so, but what's interesting is I have a friend who scored a perfect score on the ACT and an almost perfect score on the SAT. And he had even applied to Ivy League schools, but he's this little farm boy from Kuna, Idaho, and he didn't get accepted.
Yeah.
Which surprised me, actually. And so he ended up at BYU, which is still a really great school. But I mean, they have those tests for a reason. I think that they should take those under heavy consideration because it's a standardized test of, what people have learned. And if they want, they can even make like a harder one if they want. I knew I wouldn't do that great on the hard one.
Yeah.
I didn't really try on the ACT. I was like, I just need a score to get into college. I already knew I was going to BYU, Idaho. So, but I don't know. I really like those, and I think that they should be taken under heavy consideration.
Okay. Okay. Anything else that you think should be considered?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay. All right. I guess it would help if I turned on more lights in here. Sorry. Okay, Mark.
I mean, it's tough, when he says it's more of an art than a science, and art is so abstract that it's really hard to nail down one process when you're constantly changing the rules. So it's hard, like what Ashley said, you'd think that her friend from Idaho would have gotten into that school, just because, probably he would have been a minority at that school, not necessarily a white minority, but, from the background that he had, he would have been in the minority. So it's, I mean, I've always been under the belief that, there should be a set of rules, and if you meet those rules, then you should be able to be admitted. Obviously some people do better than others, and you can take that into consideration, but basing it on more feelings than facts, I don't think is very fair. I think it should be based on facts, and more facts than feelings. Because then it's just really just up to the admittance people if they like you or not.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to play the devil's advocate for just a second. So, so if we go with, a straight set of rules, and this is what you have to go to college, and then, people will be jumping all over the fact that, okay, so we have these poor students from, who are never going to get a chance to go to college because they just haven't had the advantages. So that's where the touchy-feely comes in, where you have to, you're going to say, oh, so like Southwestern, oh, we're going to have to drop our standards just a little bit so we can let those football players in so we can have a football team. Okay, so we've dropped our standards so we can allow that. So I absolutely agree, because I think that what's happened is we have affirmative action, even in colleges, where you have, and I know they don't say this, but you have a quota. Okay, so Southwestern University is unique in the fact that their quota is they take a lot of alternative lifestyle people. That's their niche. And so it really is one of their, but I think that, if a student has a desire and really wants to go to college, then they'll make that a priority. If it's not a priority, then why are we pushing them or accepting them when we know we're setting them up to fail, or setting them up to, we have all these students that are going to college to play athletics, where, and we pay for them to go to school, we pay for them to have tutors, but they don't really learn anything, and they're really just there to play football. And then when they're done, they're done. And that's, some of them never even finish their degree once they are done with their eligibility to play. So I think that college should be for people who desire to go, and there should be a set standard, and I get that, like, community colleges have a lower standard, and that's great. Lots of people could start out, oh, there goes my light, can start out at a community college and then progress forward to go to a major college if that's what they desire, and that's a really inexpensive way to be able to start out in school and see if you really want to do it. And they do have a lower standard, and if you really like it, then you can move up. But anyway, so I think fair indicators would be just a set standard. Okay, you have to have this, and so our set standard is a 4.0 and a 32 on. One of my kids applied to go to Southern Virginia University, and he went for a semester before his mission, and but while he was there, he had to get a 26 or better to get a scholarship on the ACT, and he didn't get it. He took it like 6 times, so crazy. He took it a crazy amount of times trying to up his score. And I know when I was in school, I took it one time, and there wasn't even any prep you could do. It wasn't like you can study for it. This was a true show up, take the test. This is really just showing what you know, not showing what you've studied for, but showing what you've learned in school. And I think that makes a big difference. I would like to see it go back to, but with the internet, there's so many ways to get information or, get helps that it's always not, there's no way for something to not be known, if that makes sense. So for the ACT and SAT to be this is what you know, this isn't what you have studied for, but this is what you've learned in your time of school, they would have to have a new test every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they would really want to do that, but I think it was more of a, like, my son studied for it, but anyway, he probably missed the same thing every time. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't like the test.
So do we have anything else that we need to discuss? Okay, so we're going to go back to our normal time next week.
Yep.
Okay, I will go ahead and send this out to you guys in a few minutes. The download has been taking longer on my sorry, it's been taking longer to download onto my computer. So as soon as it's downloaded, I'll send it out to everybody, and I'll download it to our group. So okay, you guys have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving.
We'll see you guys next week at, is it 8:00 my time at 7:00 your time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so 7:00 your time next week. Okay, bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.